That's way better. Hi friends, Miles here, and in today's video we'll be breaking down two tracks I made on the Ableton Move. One of them is a melodic house track and one of them is an ambient track. So without further ado, let's go. So here we are in the first track, which sounds like this. Let's first look here at the drum track. I'll just solo that for now. And you can see there are actually not so many elements playing. So the first one, obviously here, we do have the kick. Let me bring the velocity up. Here we go. That's our kick. This kick drum actually is from a sample pack. I think it's from Mars Samples, and they have some really nice 808 sounds. In general, one thing I can recommend if you want to make melodic house, melodic techno, 808 kits work very great for that. The Ableton Move comes with a stock 808 kit, so you can use that. I like to use sounds which have a little bit more punch and processing to them, which is why I went for this sample pack, but you can totally use also what is on the Move already. So this is our bass drum, and it just plays a 4 to the floor pattern on both bars. We actually have a 2-bar loop here. Then next we have the clap, and this one is a little bit special because the clap, I actually worked with two different claps. The first one, as you can hear, is dry, and the second one has reverb and some delay on it. And I really like to do that. One thing that also Stefan Bozin likes to do. On selected claps, there is a delay on, and other ones are completely dry. And this way you get some nice variations in the groove going. So dry. The first one always is with delay. Already gives us some nice groove. Next up we have our shakers or hi-hats, and here I'm using two different sounds. Let me quickly bring up the repeat. The first one is this one, and the second one is this one, and they are both layered on top. And if you listen to them, you can hear that they have a little bit of a rhythm to them. So they are not statically played. And that's another thing I like to do on the Move. If you hear with this button, turn on the repeat note, you can play notes repeatedly. And depending on how heavily you press on the pad, the sound will be louder or quieter. And this way you can very easily create some rhythmic variations. And give your drums a little bit of a human feel. And that's exactly what I did here. So very easy. The next pattern we have, I'll break the drums down first and then we move on to the melodic part. The next pattern we have here is basically the same pattern. But the kick drum is missing. So I like to use this for transition, and then you can easily go back to a pattern that has the kick drum back in it, and then move on to your main parts of the song. One thing I've just seen that I forgot to mention is this tom sound here. And that's another thing in melodic techno that is often done, is that toms are actually used as bass sounds. So if you hear that, this tom here actually plays a little bit kind of like along with the kick drum. You can see it fills in the spaces where the kick drum is not hitting. You could also fill the pattern up a little bit more. I decided to not do it, to leave it a little bit more simplified. And the way I did that, you can already see here, we have this layout here where you can play your samples here in different pitches. And that's very handy if you want to play in a bass line like this, even if it's just a simple one. But you can see here, That's exactly how it's done. Very easy, but very effective. Okay, let's move on to the last pattern. Not so different, but we can hear a new element that has come in, and that is this shaker here. This actually is from my own samples. It's a hi-hat I already used in my track Ghost, and it's made just out of white noise. So I recorded white noise from one of my synthesizers and then turned this into a hi-hat. Sounds pretty good, a little bit shakerish, but I think it gives a really nice groove here. Okay, let's move on to the melodic track, which sounds like this. I really like this sound. It's actually an ARP that I crafted myself. It's called ARP Glitchy. It's from my upcoming SOUNDPACK. So I'm right now working on a SOUNDPACK for the Ableton Move. It will have around 50 sounds in it. And yeah, it will be released hopefully very soon. I'm aiming for September. So bear with me for a little bit. I will let you know in the comment section below and put a link in there when the SOUNDPACK is out. So this sound works very great for ARPs, obviously, but in this case, if we look now here at the sequencer, for example, for this one, what I wanted to do here is to create a polymetric feel. So the way how I did it here is I always left kind of like 2 gaps between the different notes, which gives you this 3 to 4 rhythm. It's kind of like hard to explain, but when you hear it, it's like the ARP is playing a different rhythm than the drums. And there's another way how you can further double down on that feeling. So if you look here, you can see actually that we have, that we have 3 different bars, right? Not 2 bars, not 4 bars, but 3 bars. And if you place your notes in that way, it kind of like repeats seamlessly, right? You can see here, this is the last 3 bars. Here's 1 note missing. And then when we go back to our first bar, here's 1 note missing. And then there's another hit again. So it kind of like there's no disruption in this pattern as you would have if you would have gone for 2 bars and for 4 bars. So if you listen now and I let it play through, it endlessly repeats and there's no disruption to that pattern. Okay, let's move on to the transition pattern, which sounds like this. There's a little bit more going on the ARP side. Let's check that out. You can see here that the note pattern of the polymetric notes stays the same, but there are some fill notes being added to that. And these fill notes now basically play the melody. So if we look here, we have kind of like another note here, and it now so you can see it here actually. It plays this kind of like descending melody, which comes in now really nicely, especially when you compare it to the first pattern. Which is kind of like very steadily, but now if you put on the second, gets all these nice little jumps, and I really like that, especially together with the drums. It grooves very nicely, especially now when we get to the last pattern, where the ARP has again a different pattern. So the idea with this track was really kind of like, in the first pattern the ARP is quite limited, in the second pattern it plays a little bit more, and then in the third pattern it plays even more, which now sounds like this. So way more elements now in the ARP. And what I also like to do with this preset is, when I perform it, because I just love to perform on my devices that I have, the move is not perfect for performing. I mentioned that in my move review, which can be found somewhere up here. For this one, actually, it's really cool because you have all your macros here, and now we can kind of like start to tweak them live. Like opening the filter, make the sound bigger, make the sound smaller, closing the filter, give the filter some resonance, which shapes the sound completely, or shape the oscillator. Give it a little bit more of a glassy sound. The LFO rate, because there's an LFO on the sound. It gets quite messy, so we bring it back down. The amp attack, very cool parameter. And now, make the attack shorter again. Same with the filter. And bring the drums back in. You could also record all these automations in. Obviously, the Move has the capabilities to do that, which is great. But for this, I really liked to keep it as simple as possible, play with the parameters and just get going. Okay, next up, we'll be looking at an ambient track, which sounds like this. I'm using a lot of pads in this. It's a very slow ambient track, and this is a pad I created myself using Drift. And the cool thing with that is, even if I record it in the chords here, I can play on top of that. Which is what I did in the performance. This is kind of like the foundation. Then we have another pad playing along with that. It's called the Echo pad. And it plays the same chord, but some octaves or 1 octave higher. So this one is 1 octave lower, and this one just basically 1 octave higher. So they go along very nicely and are basically just layered on top of each other. With this one here, I really liked the gritty sound you can get out of it by tweaking some of the parameters here. Yeah, and I think it just sounds really nice. I also, you can see it here, I automated the gain of oscillator 1, just to give the sound a little bit more movement. And another thing here that we also have on this track here, you can see that I'm playing in 5 bars and not 4 bars. And this is something I really like to do to keep a song interesting over time. Because if you have a loop that is constantly repeating after 4 bars, it gets boring, because the listener quite quickly understands, okay, the first loop ends after 4 bars and then here we go again. So we don't want that. We want to keep it interesting. And one thing is to work with odd bar numbers like 5, 6, 7 also works great, which is what I did here. Next up, we have a piano, which sounds like this. Also just playing the same chord. And then some single notes. And you can already see here again, this one is at 3 bars. So now we have 2 tracks playing at 5 bars, 1 track playing at 3 bars. So they are kind of like really not repeating in the same way, which makes it actually quite interesting if you play them together. So here's the piano again. Here the piano is repeating again, but in the other bars we were only at the 4th bar out of 5. So very interesting to create or to play around with that to get some of your own results. And then on track number 4 we just have a sub bass that does sub, and this one's playing evenly. This one, or evenly so to speak, we have 4 bars here now. So another layer of complexity coming into the track. So it's just this note being held and then drifting or gliding up. Actually, it has a glide function. And yeah, we are using that here in another bar length to, again, keep it interesting. Let's move on to the second part. Definitely going on up here, which we can see. We still have the chord, but now a higher note is being added on top. And we can see here we have more bars. So this time we actually work with 8 bars. And we have a different chord introduced now. Change. And back again to the beginning. The piano here is actually doing something very different now because it's just playing single notes. Can hear the very long delay time. And it's also again playing an uneven number. So all the other ones are now playing at kind of like an 8-bar pattern. Here we now have a 10-bar pattern, which keeps it interesting if you play them on top of each other. The fun part about this is actually due to the fact that all of these patterns are playing at different length but are in the same key, I can also now randomly put them together, like this for example. Or let's do this. Or let's just go with the last part. And another very cool performative element is to play around with the master effects. That's something I've been starting to experiment around with quite a bit. It's very fun. As I said, the Move doesn't have that many performance tricks. This is one I found. I'll do a dedicated video on that, but just very briefly on what you can do actually. You can load all these different effects here on your master channel. So if you're here in the, I just call it session view, you have these 2 effect slots and you can load all kinds of like different songs, same as you would here on your individual tracks. And then I like to set them to some weird values here where you can see the delay has super high feedback, then it has modulation on the filter, modulation on the time, and that makes it interesting. But then the dry wet is set to 0. Same thing here with the auto filter. It's a comp filter with quite interesting settings, also set dry wet to 0. And now listen what happens when I increase that. First we go with delay. Really nice effect. Gives us another performance element, and let's go with auto filter. Introduces some phasing. You can obviously then start to play around here with some other filters as well, some other parameters like resonance, frequency of course. Return it back to the default state. So yeah, there's a lot of possibilities in this. I'll further explore that and make a video on that. But yeah, it has been really fun to play around with that and experiment a little bit on the different things you can do to shape your sounds on the fly with these 2 master effects. And yeah, that's basically how I crafted these 2 jams on the Ableton Move. I hope you found the video useful. If you did, support of the channel is always appreciated. My Patreon can be found down in the video description. There's a lot of additional stuff on there. I also have a Discord where we exchange regularly on music production. You get feedback on your music, and it's just cool to hang out with like-minded folks. So if that's something you're into, I would really appreciate you seeing around either on Patreon or on Discord. And yeah, looking forward to the next video. I hope you have a great week, and I see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.